We all know at least a few famous product mascots in advertising. By famous, I mean they become such a staple of the company and product or services brand that they are in about every piece of merchandising and advertising of the product or service. Companies use the mascot because they are so iconic, or at least consistent enough where potential customers are not annoyed at the sight of the mascot. Or some companies just try too hard and drive a mascot into the ground. However, even the iconic ones need a break. In baseball, you give your star player a day off every few times a season, and in advertising you employ a different mascot every once in a while that still represents the brand and has popularity to an extent, but is still not the #1 mascot of the brand. While there is no official term for an alternative mascot that is still recognizable, I'm going to call them secondary mascots since they are used consistently like a typical mascot, but they play more of a second banana role to the main mascots that get all the screen time and have more fans. Even though secondary mascots are not the primary fan or company favorites, I'm going to go over some of the best secondary mascots that deserve some recognition. Some may have even had a chance to become the main mascot if there was not already one in place. Some. So let's go over the top 10 secondary brand mascots. Number 10. Bingo the Dog for Cracker Jack. Simple but effective idea, giving the main mascot a cute pet. Not only simple, but also timeless, as demonstrated by these characters' main designs staying roughly the same for about 100 years. It all started for these mascots in 1918. The Cracker Jack creators made a mascot for their product and gave him a dog. The main mascot was named Sailor Jack and the dog was named Bingo. The dog was actually based off the adopted puppy of one of the company's founders. Since Cracker Jack today does not commercially advertise as much as many other snack foods, and since it started in a time where you really had to advertise with print ads and storefront advertisements, your logo or mascots really need to grab the customer's eye, and that's just what these guys did, showing that this mindset of advertising can still be effective today. Here's how it works. Your eye would normally be attracted to the larger image, which would be Sailor Jack in this case, but if you linger on the image, you'll notice his little dog companion and possibly become interested in learning more about the product. Did it work? Did it not? Did Take Me Out to the Ball Game serve as better advertising? Considering Cracker Jack is still popular today, one of these methods had to have worked, and it's likely that Bingo the Dog helped his friend Jack maintain a product for almost 100 years. Number 9. The Geico Camel. If I did not know that Geico was trying to sell me insurance, I would have assumed it was just a company meant to entertain me for 15 to 30 seconds during commercial breaks. The entertainment provided by some of these ads has nothing to do with car insurance other than a segue. The camel was one of these comedy bits leading into a segue, but the charisma of this fictional camel in showing enthusiasm that it is Wednesday, aka Hump Day, really made this commercial memorable, made better with the workers annoyed with the camel's antics in the office. The joke wasn't particularly innovative, but whoever voiced this camel should get more work. I'd quote the commercial, but that's what everyone else does, as shown in Geico's later commercial where the normal camels at the zoo were annoyed at the zoo attendees yelling quotes from the commercial at them, preventing the joke from being overused, for now, by making fun of what usually causes burnout in these ads. Number 8. The California Raisins. These raisins were not always minor mascots as they are today. In the 1980s, the California Raisins were the kings of raisin advertising, as specific as that sounds. They were claymation sentient raisins that sang R&B hit songs. They gained popularity through the 1980s and into the early 90s, evolving into a franchise of their own, with TV specials, a video game, and even a Saturday morning cartoon. They even became the mascot of Post Raisin Bran for a brief period of time. However, where do they come in as a secondary mascot? This all sounds like the main type of mascot to me. It sounds like they had their time in the sun, and not just because they'd still be grapes if they were not properly exposed to it. Well, they turned out just to be a fad that simmered down at some point in the 90s. As a result, later generations wouldn't have heard of these guys. However, they never truly left us. Their legacy is forever kept alive as a secondary mascot on the side of Sun-made raisin boxes. Any person who has never heard of these raisins will still see them anytime they pick up a box of the product. They're certainly presentable as mascots, but it's clear that the Sun-made Raisin Girl is the main mascot for this brand. It's like the Raisins retired, but they still wanted to work in the industry, but not with as big of a role, so Sunmade hired them part-time, making them official secondary mascots. Number 7 is Inori Aizawa for Internet Explorer. This mascot is a bit strange. Internet Explorer does not have a main mascot, as with most internet browsers outside of Firefox, which of course has the Firefox. So in its main promotions, Microsoft does not try to personify Internet Explorer or use a character to represent someone trying to use Internet Explorer. However, when you have a secondary campaign, anything can go, it seems. This anime girl was a product of Microsoft Singapore. Her only true ad was created for the Anime Festival Asia convention in late 2013, held in Singapore, hence why Microsoft Singapore was in charge of this project. The reason she is secondary is because she was initially just a fan-made project created by a small studio known as Collateral Damage Studios, but Microsoft initiated conversation with the studio to give them a budget to make a high-quality anime short, portraying the new Internet Explorer 11 as a superheroine that destroys enemies with the power of internet browsers, I guess. Microsoft came out saying this was not an official mascot, but she seems to be treated as part of the company since she has her own social media pages that promote Internet Explorer. I suppose the logo with the letter E can count as the primary mascot in this case then. Despite the fact that she was just released in Singapore, Internet Explorer put this short video on their main YouTube page, and whether it was intended or not, this went viral briefly. Really, it makes sense. It was well animated, the music really fits the cinematic tone, and it opens up as if you're actually going to watch a real anime. We see this dystopian land overrun by robots with lasers. Then Inori pulls off a Madoka Moon Mew Mew transformation and defeats the enemies with the power of browsers, only to see that one final giant enemy comes along before cutting to the reveal that she was sitting at her computer all along. And is she in the real world? Also product placement. Nice job, Microsoft. The day after this video was released online, all the major tech news sources were reporting on Internet Explorer's mascot, from CNET to Mashable, showing that although Microsoft didn't consider her to be official, everyone was praising them for trying something different. Did it make more people download Internet Explorer 11? Can't say, but at least it got everyone talking about it, which is a start. Once people willingly start looking at your service, you at least have their attention. Even if she's not part of the company now, she acts as a mascot attracting customers in, and then revealing that she's just here to get you to use Internet Explorer. And she might even respond to your tweets, but not before plugging Internet Explorer. Speaking of Twitter, do you know the Twitter mascot? This bird? Right, the bluebird. However, a follow-up question is, do you know who the other less prominent mascot of Twitter is? The bird again? No, it's number 6, the fail whale. When Twitter is having problems since it's receiving so many tweets at once that it's overcapacity and needs time to process all the information, they bring in an image of this whale named the fail whale. The problems are signified by a picture of a few tiny birds attempting to carry this above-average sized whale. It is a whale because the natural opposite of a bluebird is a whale. Just go watch a nature documentary. Don't quote me on that being opposite of each other information in any formal research. Since Twitter is much more efficient now than it was in the late 2000s, the fail whale is seen significantly less often due to the website not crashing as much. Probably because there are more birds in the system to lift the whale when it comes by. Because that's totally how the internet works. How these birds could even lift the whale in the early days of Twitter is beyond me. Number 5. Mac Tonight for McDonald's. He's a jazzy lounge singer with a shiny all-black suit and his head is a crescent moon. I just wanted to point that out. He was a McDonald's mascot from the mid-1980s to the early 1990s and was sort of an outlier mascot for McDonald's. McDonald's had that whole McDonaldland ad campaign where it's this magical place inhabited by all these partially food-related characters. Then eventually it was just Ronald. Is he still with the company? Yeah, anyone? He's sort of a secondary mascot on his own now because there's that Happy Meal box that's alive. Anyway, Mac Tonight was the mascot that was meant to appeal to everyone since he was separate from the McDonaldland characters who were clearly meant to appeal to the kids. Making Mac Tonight a jazzy lounge singer whose name and theme is based off of the song Mac the Knife definitely is a reference that would go over a kid's head. Adults would also find it more amusing that in his first commercials, Mac sang a parody of Mac the Knife with lyrics being, if you can believe it, about eating at McDonald's. I know, crazy to expect that in an advertisement. Of course, singing the parody of one song and changing a few words each time can only get you so far. So McDonald's gave Mac a few more things to do besides play the piano and sing that one type of song. Unfortunately for Mac, his commercials soon ended in the 90s, with one revival in 2007. This commercial was in CGI and only broadcast in a few countries like Singapore and Malaysia. So Mac did not have a full worldwide revival before he went back into the shadows that same year. Maybe he didn't last because his appearance was not enough to sustain his popularity. He doesn't particularly strike me as a food guy considering he has a moon head. Maybe they shouldn't have gotten rid of that giant floating burger he was riding on in the first commercial. They replaced it with these clouds. You don't buy clouds at McDonald's. He was fine the way he was. Number 4. The Keebler Elves that aren't Ernie. Ernie is this guy for reference. Every time you see a Keebler product, Ernie is typically the guy presenting the food on the package. Even if he isn't the main elf on the packaging, he's usually hanging out by the logo, waiting to get all the attention. Now Ernie is the leader of the Keebler Elves that make the cookies for the company, story-wise. In reality, it's probably a bunch of real-life bakers. While the main marketing campaigns focus on the Keebler Elves as a whole, Ernie is always the one that appears. Sometimes he's the only elf that appears. This choice really applies to the group of other elves, all of them. But if I had to choose just one, well, I need to separate the elves into groups. There's of course Ernie, who's the most prominent. Then there's the ones that actually have names and directly interact with Ernie. Then there's the ones that just kind of bake treats in the background and can sometimes just be incompetent. Look at them. They can't even dunk cookies into milk since the glass is too tall. How did you pour the milk in that glass and get it down that low if it's so tall? It would take a lot of dunking of those cookies. Considering the time it would take, that milk is probably spoiled. Is that who you want on your staff, Ernie? They all sort of switch around in terms of relevancy. I like the tall, skinny guy from the mid-2000s commercials who was always asking Ernie to explain everything. Everything. However, the hipster teenage elf Elwood was also pretty good with his non-traditional methods of cookie creation. Look at that. Not even Ernie can handle how uniquely he makes cookies. Oh, don't you look so concerned. You chose the position of the main mascot, now you have to deal with the secondary guys. Number 3. Oswald the Lucky Rabbit for Disney. We all know Mickey Mouse is the mascot for Disney. However, who is Disney's secondary mascot in the animation department? Of course, Mickey has his group of animal friends, which seem like prime candidates, but they're more of an extension or an entourage of Mickey and what he represents. They certainly can be associated with Disney, but Oswald is an outlier in this situation. Oswald was created by Walt Disney and Ub Iwerks in 1927, a year before the creation of Mickey Mouse. Oswald represents the original Walt Disney anthropomorphic animal that loved wacky antics. Mickey may have had more media where he's the star and is definitely a classic, but Oswald the Lucky Rabbit is the legacy character that Disney still uses in promotional material today, such as the second Epic Mickey video game in the video game series that celebrates the classic Disney designs. However, the journey of Oswald and how he got to classic status with Disney today is potentially as interesting as the character himself. In the 1920s, under Walt Disney's producer at Universal Studios, Oswald was born to give Universal Studios a face in the young industry of animation. Shortly after Oswald's creation, Walt Disney left Universal due to disagreements about how the company would handle the character of Oswald, so Disney started his own company with Iwerks. I wonder how that turned out for Universal. Well, at least Universal still has the rights to Oswald after Disney left. It's not like Disney could create an even more lovable character. There we go. Oswald didn't do much under Universal compared to the mouse, as time shows. But how did Oswald rejoin the Disney crew if Walt had to abandon him at Universal when starting his own studio? Well, now we can flash forward to 2006, where we have sportscaster Al Michaels, famous for calling Monday Night Football on ABC, the Winter Olympics, the World Series, and much more. Wait, did this just turn into an episode of E60? No, this will lead back to Disney. Al Michaels worked for ABC Sports and ESPN, owned by Disney, but he was interested in joining his former co-commentator John Madden for Sunday Night Football on NBC, which was owned by Universal. That also meant it was a rival of ABC and Disney. Basically, Disney let Michaels out of his ABC contract to work for NBC Sports alongside John Madden. However, Universal negotiated with Disney since Disney gave NBC access to a valuable commentator for initially nothing. Universal essentially gave Disney some junk lying around as compensation for letting Michaels out of his contract. And in this pile of Universal junk was the Walt Disney original creation, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Thankfully, Disney found this property to be quite useful and now reunited Oswald with his Disney classic brethren after all those years in Universal's basement. Number 2. Terry Crews for Old Spice. Now this might count as a spokesperson rather than a mascot to some, but as with other Old Spice ads, whenever there's a live-action person playing the main pitchman, he generally has an aspect of his personality exaggerated beyond the point of a believable person creating a caricature. In the case of Terry Crews, he has no boundaries whatsoever. The way Terry Crews moves around in these commercials is reminiscent of a cartoon character at various points. The main Old Spice guy, Isaiah Mustafa, is the most recognizable face in the Old Spice ads. However, when giving Isaiah Mustafa a regular break in the ad campaigns, Old Spice decides to go from a smooth-talking guy to an incredibly loud, off-the-wall character with Terry Crews. First off, this shows how Terry Crews is a versatile actor. In some TV shows, he plays a calm, family man character, or at least a character who has a temper but can control it. In the Old Spice ads, there's no predictable outcome. His eyes look like they're gonna pop out of his head, he's yelling so much. He can also break physics more than Isaiah Mustafa did in his commercials. His punches can go off-screen to the right and then come out on the left to hit the target. That means his arm can travel across the world at such a fast speed. Most of the inane activity that occurs in the Terry Crews commercials are caused directly by Old Spice, and Terry acts as the personification of Old Spice while reacting to the wacky situations in a very over-the-top fashion. He has even invaded other commercials for real products to show how powerful Old Spice is. He can even summon potato chips with Old Spice. He does not always benefit from Old Spice. It once caused him to lose his mind. Literally. Just like the other modern Old Spice ads, these ads received millions of views online, showing that Old Spice is great at making their ads creative enough to get people to look them up and view their commercials, which are typically skipped over as soon as possible when other products are advertised. So, for number 1, I chose a character that may not be as over-the-top and in-your-face as some of these other mascots. But in his commercials, he truly took over and seemed like the main mascot if the real main mascot was not in the name of the brand. Number 1 is Little Green Sprout for Green Giant. He started in the early 1970s. He does all the talking in his commercials compared to the Green Giant who just stands there saying ho ho ho, and occasionally bends over and puts vegetables on the ground. However, in the canon of the commercials, the Jolly Green Giant is the one that apparently does all the work to get those vegetables to the public, so maybe having him as the main mascot is a sign of respect to the guy who does all the gardening. It also wouldn't make sense to have the brand be named Green Giant and have the actual Green Giant playing sidekick to what appears to be a child. I'm not actually sure what Sprout's relation is to the Green Giant. He looks like he could be his son since he dresses like him and has that genetic trait of being green, but Sprout refers to the Green Giant as if he's just a guy that he idolizes, so maybe Sprout is like his apprentice? Maybe he's just always cosplaying. Either way, I can assume that they're not related. Sprout is always learning about these new Green Giant products on his own in these commercials. Very coincidental that he's learning right as the commercial starts. He's actually just playing the role as the consumer asking, "Wow, what's this new amazing product that Green Giant just put out?" It makes sense since Sprout's about the same size as the normal people in the commercials. People who seem more informed than the guy who supposedly works under the Green Giant and is the secondary mascot. Anyway, he's the size of a child of a normal person to relate with us normal people. What is the size ratio actually supposed to be? I understand that Sprout is the same size as a twig according to the original jingle, but the people in the ads are about the same size as Sprout and the cans are the size of the people. So is Sprout the size of a normal person and are the Green Giant's vegetables just as big as a person? But wait, then the line about the twig, and wait a minute, the size of the can when it reaches the grocery store is just the size of a shelf, and oh my god, this does not add up. You know what, let's just stop it here before I confuse us even more. So, are there any secondary brand mascots that I forgot or you just like? Let me know. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.